Hello, I'm Rebecca Esselman, the Executive Director at the Huron River Watershed Council. I'm going to talk to you today about climate change. It has become increasingly difficult to avoid news and information on climate change, and this is a good thing. It means that the issue is becoming mainstream and gaining the necessary support for the sweeping level of action necessary to address it. But what does this mean for the Huron River and for the Huron River Watershed Council? What can one small river protection group and its supporters do against such a formidable threat? And what do we stand to lose if we fail to act? As a river ecologist, I look at a river and see an ecosystem, a delicate, intricate web of interconnections, one factor dependent upon another. An ecosystem is a biological community of interacting organisms and its physical environment. Climate change is a departure from that physical environment, and if that departure is great enough, the implications can be catastrophic. Think of it this way: rivers evolve under a set of conditions over the course of millennia. When the glaciers receded from Michigan some 10,000 years ago, our lakes and rivers were formed. They have since experienced a reliable set of environmental conditions in which to evolve and thrive. The environmental conditions pertaining to weather patterns over time I like to call the climate envelope. If we experience conditions outside that climate envelope in extreme ways or frequently, the delicate balance of an ecosystem is challenged. Let me give you a couple of examples of how intimately tied a species can be to its climate. Sugar maple are revered for their fall color. They give us the gift of syrup, and they are keystone species in some Huron River forests. Warmer growing seasons and earlier springs are leading to sap production declines throughout the sugar maple's range, and climate models show a near complete loss of this species from all of Michigan. In the Huron River, sugar maple can make up to 60% of a forest's canopy. Think about the implications of losing 60% of a forest's canopy, both short-term and long-term. Initially, there's a decreased shade and infiltration capacity. There's the opportunity for invasive species to take over and increased fire risk. In the long term, we've just lost one of the earliest sources of pollen for our honeybees and other insects. Smallmouth bass are a Huron River favorite. They are iconic, they're good fishing, they are top predators, and for this heron here, they are lunch. Do you know when smallmouth bass know that it's time to reproduce? I'll give you a hint. It has nothing to do with Valentine's Day or Al Green. Bass begin spawning when water temperatures reach 59 degrees. At this time, they build their nests, deposit their eggs, and raise their young. The whole process takes about 6 weeks. Bass will select nesting sites to avoid swiftly moving water. They do this because it gives them the best chance at getting the most eggs to be young, independent fish. And yet, the most visible an immediate way that Southeast Michigan is experiencing climate change is by seeing increases in rainfall and more extreme rainfall events. When all that rain rushes to the river swells and moves swiftly. We lose those bass. If this happens year after year, we will see population declines in our smallmouth bass, with implications for the ecosystem, for recreation, and for our local economy. It can be difficult to grasp the implications of the loss of a few species in an ecosystem. You may be asking, well, so what? I think of it as a game of Jenga. You can remove a piece or two or three, but eventually the whole structure becomes so unstable that it collapses. This issue can seem incredibly daunting because the reality is the problem is global, and so are many of the solutions. But there are actions that we can take at the local level that can prepare the Huron River for inevitable change that will occur because of greenhouse gases already emitted, and also contribute to that larger effort to reduce those emissions such that we keep a climate that can support healthy functioning ecosystems everywhere. I, for one, feel both hope and motivation. The climate crisis is nothing short of a crisis. However, actions that the United States and other countries around the world have taken is making a difference. The cost of renewable energy is, or will soon be, the cheapest form of energy for most of the planet, including here in Michigan. Couple this with a rapid decline in coal power production, and we are now poised to avoid the worst case scenario that would have played out if we would have continued our business as usual. That said, even if we meet all national level pledges and commitments, we are still looking at warming of over 2 degrees Celsius. This is above the target of the Paris Climate Agreement. We want to stay below a 2-degree increase in global temperatures in order to avoid the most catastrophic implications of climate change. And many experts are now arguing that that number should be closer to 1.5 degrees Celsius. With each day that passes, this scenario gets less and less likely. It is why this is an all-hands-on-deck situation. The opportunities to act on climate change at the local level fall into 2 categories: mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation are actions that reduce greenhouse gas emissions to the atmosphere. This would be things like driving an electric vehicle. Adaptation, on the other hand, are actions that help prepare individuals or systems to handle at least some of the change. This could be thought of as things like keeping homes and other development out of our ever-expanding floodplains. The Huron River will experience conditions outside of its climate envelope, but there are things we can do to prepare the Huron for more extreme heat, more extreme rainfall, and other climate impacts. I'd like to share with you now a little bit about some of the things we're doing. We are working to protect the forests and wetlands along our river. These riparian lands are critical for supporting clean water and freshwater ecosystems, but are even more critical under climate change because they provide a buffer against higher heat that can be so detrimental to aquatic life. In the Huron, we are fortunate to have a state-designated natural rivers district, which protects these riparian lands from Kensington down to Ann Arbor. We are working with the state and local governments to make sure that this natural asset remains undeveloped. We also work with other local governments to develop ordinances that protect these critical areas where they fall outside of the Natural Rivers District. In some places, we are restoring habitat where it is lacking. Habitat is critical for providing refugia or places to shelter during extreme events. Habitat in a river can be logs, branches, leaf mats, overhanging roots, that type of thing. In Riverside Park in Ypsilanti and Gibson Park in Wixom, we have placed trees in the channel and anchored them to the banks. These trees will collect material that flows downstream, creating over time really high quality habitat for aquatic organisms. Dams are part of the solution as well. Removing unnecessary dams is one of the most impactful things that can be done to build resilience in our river system and to protect our communities. We are experiencing rainfall events that are causing infrastructure failures everywhere. We saw this with the Midland Dam breaches in 2020. Our work with the City of Ypsilanti to remove the Peninsular Dam will decrease the vulnerability of the river and our downstream communities to climate change. Where dams remain in place, there are things we can do as well. HRWC is working with a network of dam operators throughout the watershed to consider how we might be able to manage flows to reduce the impact of some of these extreme events. One example of this might be to manage flows in a way that reduce rapid pulses of water during extreme rainfall events that impact those bass so harshly that we talked about earlier. On the mitigation front, the Huron River is blessed with a large amount of intact natural systems. Our forests, wetlands, and prairies capture and store carbon and keep it out of the atmosphere. Just 1 acre of hardwood forest can sequester 30,000 pounds of carbon dioxide each year. I feel strongly that land protection needs to be a pillar of any climate action strategy, alongside more high-profile strategies like renewable energy and more efficient transportation. And because land protection is also the most cost-effective way to provide clean drinking water and healthy freshwater systems, the Huron River Watershed Council is doubling down on an effort to quantify the carbon capture potential in our watershed and to build creative partnerships to acquire that land, such that it both mitigate climate change and improve water quality. The Huron River Watershed Council works at the intersection of water, climate change, and communities, both locally and regionally. River restoration, land protection, and environmental flows are 3 strategies we employ to prepare the Huron River for climate change and to contribute to global efforts to avoid the worst impacts of a changing climate. Together, we can do this.